If anyone's ever asked you, why are you so quiet? This is the video for you. So I'm not joking when I say, back in school I was invisible. I was so quiet. I just kept to myself in class. I never put my hand up or spoke to the kid next to me. That one day someone thought it would be a funny idea to just point at me and say, "Who's that? Is that the new kid or something?" And overnight, this joke just blew up across the entire year group. At one point, I had like 50 people I didn't know stopping me in the corridors asking me, "Who are you?" Who are you? Like, it sounds kind of funny when I'm repeating it back to you. But at the time, this was fucking debilitating. This was absolutely crushing some of the worst bullying I'd ever experienced. And you know, my group of friends, my supposed safety net, the place that I was supposed to be able to turn to when all of this was getting too much, I couldn't rely on them because they joined in. They took the piss even more. And I'll be honest with you, right? Like, I never really felt like I fit in with this particular group. It was always like I was kind of on the fringes of everything they did. Like, I'd very often go on social media and see them hanging out without me. Like, they'd be outside of school at the cinema and I'd be thinking, where was my invite? And like I said, they often took the piss out of me. They often ridiculed me as a way of getting a laugh out the rest of the group. So I figured out pretty early on that the way to gain clout points in this group was to either ridicule myself, to act like I was okay with all these jokes being made at my expense and join in with them, or it was like picking on someone else, someone who was even more vulnerable in the group, someone just like me who just wanted to fit in. And I was aware of how bad this was, of how bad it made me feel inside. But I just tolerated it. I tolerated all of this disrespect, however damaging it was to my self-esteem, because I didn't have any other options. No one else I could have hung out with. And for me, I think that's what true social invisibility looks like. So let me just take a moment to contrast that with where I'm at today. So I carry myself with a lot more confidence, hopefully, as you can see. I speak to strangers and form authentic connections every single day of my life without much effort. I don't have a massive circle of friends, but every friend that I've made is strong and dependable. Like, I can really rely on every single one of these guys if shit hits the fan. And get this, because this is really like the mind-blowing part for me. People from school who used to take the piss out of me, they've seen this transformation I've been through. They've seen how much more confident I am, the change I've made. And they're now reaching out to me to be my friend. They're asking me if I want to hang out. And like, you're gonna think I'm like really arrogant. Like, I promise this is not getting to my head too much. But I'm now in a position where I could reject them if I wanted to. These are the guys that used to reject me, but now I could do the same to them. Like, that is the clearest indicator of progress that I've ever seen. Like, clearly I'm not letting this inflate my ego even more, but today I want to teach you how I made that change. I'm going to tell you 3 ways that I stopped being socially invisible and claimed the social life that I really wanted. So for this first point, it is imperative that you pay attention to what I'm about to say, because the rest of the video just won't make sense. Like, if you do not implement this, you might as well just click off now. And that is, your past does not define you. So for a while, both during and after I'd left school for good, I was really haunted and weighed down by a lot of my past experiences. Like, think about it from my perspective. So I've been in school for 7 years. I've only made about like 1 or 2 good friends who don't bully me, who I can actually trust. People don't remember who I am when I walk down the corridor, or at least that's what they tell me. And the ones that can remember, they seem to all think that I'm just some socially awkward freak. That was just the way that I saw myself. So you can probably forgive me for thinking that must be something to do with me. It's clearly something that I've done wrong. So to explain the effect that had on me, that self-defeating mindset that I was carrying around, it just really damaged my ability to build quality friendships and relationships. I had so many trust issues. I didn't have a lot of faith in other people, let alone in myself. So it was like I was walking around with my guard up, not really letting anyone in, not trying to allow myself to become close with other people as a defense mechanism to stop them from betraying me after all those experiences I'd had with my friends in school. So for instance, if someone invited me out on the weekend, I'd probably say no. I'm not going to put myself out there. I'm not going to go and meet these new people. I'm going to keep myself safe and sound. Or at least that was how I saw it. But ironically, it was in lockdown, when I couldn't go out, that I had this realization about myself. Sure, all these bad things have happened to me in the past. I have major trust issues. But if I'm not willing to put myself out there, to make myself vulnerable, what is really the alternative? Quite soon I'm literally not gonna have any friends left because I've not even been working on those relationships. I'm gonna be feeling even more emptiness than I already do because this need for human connection that we all have is not being met. And I was no stranger to loneliness, but to me that sounded like a really depressing existence. Not to mention, the friends that put me through this, who gave me these trust issues, they've probably moved on in all likelihood. Like, this is kind of a depressing reality when it comes to bullying, but you hold on to this trauma for much longer than the perpetrator does. Like, generally they forget about it as soon as they go home. It's super easy for them to detach from it because it's not so personal. So while they've moved on and forgotten about it, I'm literally letting them live rent-free in my mind. I'm letting them influence my decision making. So that was when I made a conscious decision not to let my past define me. So just to explain what I mean by that, this does not involve lying to yourself about what happened to you. It does not involve denying that this bad thing that you experienced in the past did actually occur, because it did. What it does involve is not allowing your past to stop you from making the right decisions, to influence your life and hold you back, to literally go against your brain and still do the thing it's telling you not to do. And this is not an easy thing to do, because when there's pain attached to a certain memory or experience, your brain really will do everything it can to talk you out of going ahead with it. It's always going to be a little bit painful because your self-image just isn't there yet. You don't see yourself as this confident guy who can go and do this and that. It takes a little while for that to catch up. That's just something you have to remember. You're probably going to be carrying a bit of nervousness, a bit of awkwardness into your conversations. But the way I see it is, if you make an honest, authentic attempt to connect with another human being and they don't like you and they reject you, all you've done is highlight an incompatibility that already existed between the two of you. Like, it's a weird way of looking at it, but a friendship between the two of you likely wouldn't have worked out anyway. So at least you've got it over and done with now. At least you're aware of it sooner rather than later. It doesn't matter where your starting point is. It doesn't matter where you've come from. Don't ever look for approval from someone else. Don't ever put them on the pedestal. And most certainly do not ever tolerate bad behavior from other people, because the harm to your self-image, your self-esteem will be much worse than any loneliness you could experience. So the second thing I want you to know, and it's going to sound like a little bit cliche, like you've probably heard this before, but not in the way that I'm about to explain it. And that's that people really don't care as much as you think. So let me ask you something. When you get nervous in social situations, do you ever feel like everyone's watching you? People are watching your every move, don't know what to do with your hands. Should you have them in your pockets? Should you have them resting out in front of you? All of these stupid little thoughts that you have when you're in this state of anxiety. Because that was definitely the case for me. And get this, even having that belief in your mind that everyone's watching you, that can make your body language even more stiff and awkward. It can perpetuate the cycle. It can make you start stuttering and getting even more nervous. Now, in addition to the one that I'm about to give away in this video, me and the guys in my Discord server actually came up with a bunch more solutions to this exact problem of awkward body language, feeling like the world is watching you, also feeling like you're about to say the wrong thing and not being able to find the right words at all. So if you want to know what we came up with or learn even more practical advice when it comes to your social skills, I'd highly recommend joining up through the link in the description. But the thing that probably relieved the most amount of pressure for me in these social situations was a concept known as the spotlight effect. Now, the spotlight effect is the idea that every single one of us severely overestimates the extent to which other people are paying attention to what we do. In simple terms, when you think someone else is watching you, when you're hyper-fixating on your own awkwardness, really they don't actually give a fuck. They could care less. Now, some scientists at a university ran a study to prove this hypothesis. So basically what they did was they had this experiment where they got these students, maybe 3 or 4 students, to go into an extremely public place, like a university library, whilst wearing these embarrassing t-shirts, these t-shirts with a really ugly image on the front. So they had the students go around the library as normal for an hour, and then after they'd left, they went round and asked the people who'd been in the library how many of them actually noticed these students in the funny t-shirts. So the students themselves estimated that 50% of the people in that library would have reported to have noticed them. In actuality, it was more like 20%, and even fewer than 20% could actually remember the image on their t-shirts. And I think that speaks to just how much people are wrapped up in their own lives. They're not retaining all this information about you, they're focusing on themselves. So if I'm hyper aware of all my own fuck ups, my awkward moments, that doesn't mean other people are. So if you fuck up in a conversation, if you're stuttering and awkward like this, give it an hour. Most people won't even be able to remember what that conversation was about. And this was so refreshing for me to find out about. It takes away all the pressure I feel to be funny constantly, to be charming. And it just allows me to be a human being, to let my conversations flow naturally. Okay, so the third and final way to overcome your social invisibility is to use your introvertedness as an advantage. Alright, so if you're watching this video, I'm going to take a leap of faith and assume that you're, like me, more on the introverted side. And I'm also going to make another assumption that people have convinced you this is a disadvantage. That because you're supposedly so quiet, that because you're reserved, that you can't do the things that an extrovert can. But I'm going to contradict that, because I'd argue every bit of progress I've made, all of my confidence, all of the friends and connections I've made along the way, I'd not have any of that had it not been for my natural introvertedness. I'd argue that introverts have a lot of hidden talents that people don't at first pick up on, that you can use to your advantage to form deeper connections than an extrovert could ever hope of making. And this is what I want you to think about. I want you to look at your more naturally introverted traits and think, how can I use this as my tactical advantage? How can I use this to get ahead in social situations? I talked about this in my last video on becoming a more confident introvert. When I'm speaking to people in conversations, I'm not trying to make it all about me. I'm not all obnoxious. I don't need to be the center of attention. That's not really my style. I prefer to listen because I'm genuinely fascinated by people. I enjoy listening attentively to what people are saying, to showing a genuine interest in them. And people love me for this. Like, this is a highly personable trait. I'm actually engaged by what they're talking about instead of just trying to make it all about me. I remember the story that I heard about Napoleon. One of the reasons he was so popular with his soldiers was because it didn't matter that he was this big general. He could remember all of their names, all of their ranks, like certain information about their family members. They each felt like they had a personal connection with this guy. So anytime people tell me certain details about them, like it could be something as simple as their name, I'll make extra effort to remember like everything they tell me. And then sometimes I don't see them for like 6 months and I see them again and I can remember the things that they told me, and they're like, wow, like it genuinely can make someone's day. And also where I'm at now in terms of my confidence, I can pretty comfortably like speak to an entire group at once. But before I used to find that quite daunting. Again, it's this thing about feeling like everyone's watching you, like waiting for you to mess up. So my approach back then was to try and get to know every single member of a new group one-on-one. In those group settings, instead of trying to address the whole group at once and be that guy with like the loudest voice who's entertaining everyone, I'd seek to get to know them one-on-one. I'd earn their respect individually. And after I'd made the effort to do that, I wouldn't be like the loudest person in the group, but I'd still feel this overwhelming sense of belonging, like I was actually supposed to be there. If people used to use your introvertedness against you, it just feels so like powerful and refreshing to put it to work in this way, to like finally use it to your advantage. And remember, my friend, there is absolutely nothing stopping you from doing what an extrovert can. You have the same capabilities, you just go about things in a different way. Alright, so I appreciate you watching this video all the way through. If you feel like you're lacking that place where you can authentically be yourself, to open up to others, I would highly recommend that you join my Discord server right now. It's a great place full of supportive guys who genuinely want to see you win, who are willing to help you through each and every one of your problems. I'm going to be there offering advice on not just social skills, but how to level up in any other realm of your life. Because I've been doing this for a while, I've been on my own journey, and I find it really rewarding to be able to give back in this way. So join through the link in the description. I would absolutely love to have you be a part of it. That is all from me today, bro. I'll see you in the next one.